On April 28, 1937, Saddam Hussein was born, a man who meant, he who confronts, and in a way, he already predicted what he would do facing adversities in childhood and as an adult to anyone who stood in the way of his goals. He was known as the Butcher of Baghdad, for the mistakes he made, especially when he held the presidency of Iraq. He sowed pain among the Kurds, an Iranian people of the Shiite Muslims who believed in him and Vitali as the successor of Muhammad. Today we will show you 25 chilling things about Saddam Hussein that sowed fear and also spelled his own doom. Before we dive deep, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to keep up with our updates. Number 1. His stepfather forced him to steal animals. Little Saddam lived for a few years with his mother and stepfather Ibrahim al-Hassan, who beat him several times and forced him to steal animals such as chickens and goats, either to sell or eat them. If seen stealing, the boy preferred to poison the animal rather than return it. But Nick Chalmet, a French writer who wrote about the childhoods of 10 dictators, claimed that Saddam was sexually abused by his stepfather and also learned to slit throats and suffocate when he was only 5 years old. By the age of 9 he was already a twisted thinking child. Number 2. He had his first gun when he was just a child. His maternal uncle, K, was the Tauf and took care of him his first few years of life until he was imprisoned for taking part in an unsuccessful uprising intended to bring down the pro-British government of Iraq. Alpha was released from prison when Saddam was 10 years old, and immediately the little boy returned to live with him. It was Tal Fa who allowed him to attend school and instilled in the little boy the ideals of being Iraq's leader. In addition, he gave him a pistol before he reached adolescence. Saddam allegedly used the gun to threaten his elementary school teachers and to kill a man. Reports claim that when police arrived at Tal Fa's home, they found the little boy sleeping with the gun still warm under his pillow. Number 3. At the age of 20 he joined as a thug to the Socialist Party under the Peace Party as a covert revolutionary force. He became the most radical in Iraq's territory in 1957. Jose M. entered this party as a low-ranking thug at the age of 22. He was entrusted with the task of assassinating Abdul Karim Qasim, the prime minister. He and his accomplices failed, although he injured Qasim and killed his driver. Saddam Hussein was injured in the leg but managed to escape disguised as a woman. He fled first to Syria and then to Egypt until 1963, when after the overthrow of Qasim and with the years he began to gain power through the Ba'ath Party. Number 4. Murder of Dawa Party militants. He persecuted leaders of the Islamic Dawa Party because they defended the Shiites and always opposed communism and pan-Arab socialism promoted by the Ba'ath Party. This conflict began long before he officially became president, although he already had political power in 1974. Many Dawa leaders were persecuted, arrested and tortured without any consideration. In 1975, several of its members were exiled and became part of the Iranian army during the Iran-Iraq War. They formed a guerrilla alliance that aimed to remove Hussein from power. Some sources indicate that during his mandate, 120,000 Dawa militants died. Number 5. Forced his cousin to resign as president of Iraq. In 1979, President Ahmed Hassan of Iraq attempted to unite his nation with Syria, which was counterproductive to the plans that Hussein had, as he would be practically powerless. In 1968, Jose M. participated in the fascist coup that made Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr president, so he was not willing to be left out of power and forced his cousin to resign. Number 6. A purge inaugurated his regime. On July 22, 1979, 6 days after taking power, he summoned members of the Ba'ath Party to reaffirm his victory and begin to pay the bill. In the meeting, he pointed out that a betrayal had been plotted against him. Among the members of the Revolutionary Command Council of Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, who under threat and coercion spoke of a plot and those involved, people who of course were in that room, and they were arrested. The act was televised because Saddam Hussein was showing everyone what he was willing to do. 22 of those arrested were executed, among them 5 ministers. The execution was carried out by members of the cabinet of Jose, so that all were implicated and would never forget how a betrayal was paid to the new ruler of Iraq. Number 7, ordered the execution of his own son-in-law. Saddam Hussein's son-in-law, Hussein Kamel, was the head of Iraq's military industrialization program. He defected to Jordan in 1995, taking with him valuable information about Iraq's weapons programs. Kamel was lured back to Iraq with promises of amnesty, but as soon as he returned, he was arrested and executed, along with his brothers. Number 8, the Anfal campaign against the Kurds. In the late 1980s, Saddam Hussein launched a campaign against the Kurdish population in northern Iraq, known as the Anfal campaign. The goal was to eliminate any potential threat to his regime by destroying Kurdish villages and towns, and relocating the population to government-controlled areas. The campaign resulted in the deaths of an estimated 100,000 to 180,000 Kurds, and the displacement of over 1 million people. The Anfal campaign is considered one of the worst acts of genocide in recent history. Number 9, the invasion of Kuwait. In 1990, Saddam Hussein ordered the invasion of Kuwait, citing historical claims to the land and accusing Kuwait of stealing oil from a shared oil field. The United Nations condemned the invasion and authorized a coalition led by the United States to drive Iraq out of Kuwait. The resulting war, known as the Gulf War, resulted in the deaths of thousands of Iraqi and coalition soldiers, as well as civilians. Iraq's infrastructure and economy were severely damaged, and the country was left heavily in debt and under international sanctions. Number 10, the persecution of religious minorities. During his rule, Saddam Hussein targeted religious minorities such as Christians, Yazidis, and Sabaean Mandaeans, as well as members of the Kurdish community who followed different religious beliefs. They were subjected to arbitrary arrest, torture, and execution. Their properties were confiscated, and they were forced to flee their homes. They faced discrimination in education and employment, and were not allowed to practice their religion freely. The regime also destroyed religious sites and artifacts, in an attempt to erase their cultural heritage. Number 11, the use of chemical weapons. Saddam Hussein's regime is known to have used chemical weapons against both enemy soldiers and civilians during the Iran-Iraq War and against the Kurdish population in the Anfal campaign. The most notorious attack was the one against the Kurdish town of Halabja in 1988, where thousands of people were killed and injured by mustard gas and nerve agents. The use of chemical weapons is considered a war crime and a violation of international law. Saddam Hussein and his regime were held accountable for these atrocities after his capture by the coalition forces and were executed by hanging. Number 12, the Anfal campaign. One of the most brutal extermination campaigns carried out by Saddam Hussein. It is considered a genocide because an estimated 4,500 population were destroyed between 1986 and 1989. Saddam ordered it due to his disdain for Kurds and other non-Arab peoples living in the northern part of Iraq. It is estimated that 182,000 Kurds died during this campaign, which was carried out in multiple phases. Chemical weapons were used during this operation, which was led by Saddam's cousin. Number 13, the Halabja chemical attack. This attack was part of the Anfal campaign but deserves separate mention. Iraqi forces bombed the town of Halabja with chemical weapons on March 16, 1988 as retaliation against Kurdish fighters known as the Peshmerga, who had supported the Iranian army. Mustard gas and other toxic chemicals were used in the attack, which resulted in the deaths of around 5,000 people and the injury of around 10,000. Many people continue to suffer from the aftermath of the attack, including various types of cancer and birth defects. Number 14. Arms spending. Saddam Hussein nationalized the oil industry before officially becoming the president of Iraq. While this led to a period of growth for the nation, it also made Iraq one of the largest buyers of weapons from Soviet and Western suppliers. Saddam allocated 40% of oil revenues towards arms spending, which increased during the war with Iran. Number 15. The hanging of 14 people in Baghdad. Saddam Hussein accused 14 people of being part of a Zionist spy network and had 13 of them, who were Jewish, hanged in front of a crowd in the center of Baghdad. Number 16. Televised executions. Not content with displaying executions in front of local crowds, Saddam Hussein had the arrests and executions of many of his opponents broadcast live on television. Number 17. Punishment for joking about him. Through informants, Saddam Hussein knew the actions of those close to him and would cut out the tongues or kill anyone who dared to joke about him. Number 18. The invasion of Kuwait. Iraq was left economically devastated after the war with Iran and needed a new source of income. Saddam Hussein saw Kuwait as an easy target and invaded the country in 1990, claiming historical rights to the land and accusing Kuwait of stealing oil from a shared oil field. The United Nations condemned the invasion and authorized a coalition led by the United States to drive Iraq out of Kuwait. Number 19. The destruction of the Marsh Arabs. Saddam Hussein's regime targeted the Marsh Arabs, a community that has lived in the marshlands of southern Iraq for thousands of years. The regime drained the marshes, destroyed their homes and villages, and killed or displaced the residents in an effort to quell dissent and punish those who had supported the rebellion following the Gulf War. This resulted in the displacement of around 200,000 people and the destruction of a unique culture and way of life. Number 20. The manipulation of the Oil for Food Program. The United Nations established the Oil for Food Program to provide humanitarian aid to the Iraqi people during the sanctions imposed after the invasion of Kuwait. Saddam Hussein's regime manipulated the program to their advantage by using the proceeds from oil sales to strengthen their own power and further oppress the population. Additionally, they also used the program to buy support from foreign governments and individuals, through bribery and kickbacks. Number 21. Saddam killed hundreds of people just for suspecting them. As a dictator and killer, Saddam suffered from paranoia and believed that his life was more important than others. He would justify the execution of his opponents, even if they were just suspected of being against him. He preferred to kill without caring if he was later proven to be wrong. Number 22. Saddam punished the Arab population living in the marshes of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in southern and eastern Iraq by stopping the flow of water to the wetlands. This caused the population to die of starvation and thirst. Many of these Arabs, mostly Shia, were killed and others managed to flee from Saddam's wrath. This population went from 250,000 to only 30,000, and the marshes were reduced from 9,000 square kilometers to 760 square kilometers as a result of the diversion of water. Number 23. On one day, Saddam executed 42 food merchants. These 42 murders were carried out by two ministers of Saddam's regime, Tariq Aziz, the former vice prime minister, and Ali Hassan al-Majid, the former minister of defense and Saddam's cousin. The 42 executions occurred in 1992 during a severe crisis caused by the war with Iran and the invasion of Kuwait. The ministers accused the merchants of speculation for increasing the price of food during the crisis, and the solution for those in power was to execute them the same day they were arrested and judged. Number 24. Saddam ordered a copy of the Quran to be written in his own blood. One of the most famous and terrifying things about Saddam is that he ordered a copy of the Quran to be written in his own blood as a way to thank God for overcoming the obstacles in his life. This action violated the prohibition of any sect or branch of Islam to use blood for such a purpose. The copy was written by calligrapher Abd al-Audi, who used 50 pints of blood over 2 years to write 6,000 verses and 336,000 words of the Quran. Many experts consider it difficult for one person to donate that much blood in just 2 years. Number 25 was hanged in 2006 after being captured in a hole in the ground on a farm near his hometown of Tikrit in December 2003. Saddam was tried for war crimes and crimes against humanity for his role in the massacre of 148 Shiites in the village of Dujail in 1982. Despite the evidence presented against him, he always denied any responsibility for the crimes and argued that he was being tried by an illegal court. Finally, after a long and controversial trial, he was sentenced to death and executed on December 30, 2006, ending his reign of terror in Iraq. Number 26. The Dujail Massacre. In 1982, Saddam Hussein ordered the execution of 148 men and teenage boys from the town of Dujail after an assassination attempt on his life. The town was also razed to the ground and its residents were forced to flee. This massacre is considered one of the most brutal acts committed by Saddam during his reign, and he was later convicted of crimes against humanity for it. We hope you found this video useful. If you have something to add, please share it with us in the comments section like this video and send the link to your family and best friends so they also know more about these 25 chilling things about Saddam Hussein, the Butcher of Baghdad. If you are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to follow us. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, make sure to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We'll be back soon with more curiosities from history.